Yeah, thanks for coming this morning. I appreciate it. Certainly would have been, we were hoping this conversation might have happened a little later in the spring or maybe early summer even. But it is what it is, and we're here today to wrap up a disappointing season. As we certainly came into this year with the expectation to be a playoff team. I mean, that's to me a minimum goal of this franchise. Didn't happen, and so now we have to figure out what went wrong, and that's the job of myself and the staff, and work with the coaches to we get better, and that's what we're all about here. So,
what are your initial takes on what went wrong, Don? Just cosmetically, I guess, looking back right now.
We had a good first half, a good start to the season. I think when you look at it, I mean, I read your stories. You're all pretty in tune to. I think you're right on the money. I mean, a couple key points to me. Since Dave Tippett has been here, he's a terrific coach. As far as I'm the best in the game. We've had a real identity of being able to lock games down and lock teams out. And we're leading after the second period. You can basically shut your sets off and go home. We're going to win that game. I think last I checked, we were 29th in the league in stats leading after two periods. So even the four prior years, we're always in the top 10. So our ability to maintain a lead, whether it's the first period, second, or the end of the third period, that's troubling. And we have to figure out why that is. And I don't have an answer today. I don't. You can't say, oh, it's our goaltending wasn't as good, or even our defense. That's not it. It's a team identity issue. Our ability to advance pucks out of our zone, our play of our wingers along the boards. So there's a lot to it, and it's a little too raw to have this conversation now. But that to me is one of the striking things when you look at it from a purely statistical analysis. A year ago, I stood up here and said our power play has to be better. We have to improve the power play. Well, our power play is statistically the best in the West. Penalty killing remains a problem. We have to figure out why, and we have to make it better. And so, we certainly had injuries like everybody does at key times. Losing Mike. I think if you look at Mike Smith, I thought the first half was average. His numbers were in the bottom third of the league. From a couple weeks prior to the Olympic break till after, I thought he's everything we wanted. I thought he was a top 10 goalie. That type of goaltender gets you to the playoffs. Got hurt. Thomas Greiss played well. We can't throw this and say, oh, poor us. Mike is down and now we have no goalie. Thomas Greiss played well enough for us to win. Our scoring, went the way of the Mohicans. It was gone, and we have to take a hard look at our group and what we have here, and figure out how we're going to get better. So, you look. Marty Hansel had a great first half of the season. It almost seems this story of, to me, of two separate seasons for us. Great, best statistical start of his career. From the Olympics on, he was basically out. The injury, the groin and hip injury. Wasn't the same player. Mike Ribeiro was very similar. Mike came in here as a big signing last summer, had a very good, a good first half in regards to our leading score, and a poor second half. Why? What happened? And that's what we have to make better. And that's what we're all about here. We have to get to the point where we're certainly better than we were this year.
Can you explain maybe more about Mike Smith's injury, and just maybe, when could you have expected him back? I don't know if the
Our goal was to try and get him back for the start of the playoffs. It was an MCL injury of his knee, and generally that type of injury for a skater, it's a 2 to 4 week injury. And the reason we didn't, I know we were somewhat cryptic publicly about it. We just didn't want it to be a distraction for Thomas Greiss and the team. We had to move past it. We knew internally that he was not going to help us get to the playoffs. So we said, let's not make it, let's just leave it on the sidelines. Let's focus on Thomas and our team and get to the playoffs. And maybe Mike will be back in the playoffs. So, and that was far from certain. At some point, if you play long enough, he's probably back. But it was a significant injury. If you all saw it, and it was for a goaltender that plays a butterfly style to be down and up. His recovery has been good. He's feeling great. The good thing for us, he has lots of time to recover and be be that much better.
Was it a sprain done?
Yes, sprained MCL. No, no surgery necessary at all. And he's feeling good today. There are a couple,
Is that you again?
yeah, there are a couple movements that he does on the ice that cause him discomfort. He's wearing a brace now. But the good thing for us, Mike is such a good athlete. We have no qualms whatsoever about a long-term, I don't know how to ignore this, but long-term problem with it. He'll be back 100% and we'll be better.
Any other guys dealing with injuries? You mentioned Marty, but anyone else?
Yeah,
that had
Marty
anything
Hansel,
injury?
the nagging groin and hip injury, and you look at in some ways you could argue about two of our three most valuable, important people are Mike Smith and Marty Hansel in a lot of ways. And Marty's he touches so many areas of the game, and really, if you look at the second half, he was a non-factor in the game. So we're just not good enough to recover, and we didn't play well enough, and yet we were still right there, and that's what I think is so hard for us to swallow. This to me is not where we were, 20 points out. We were there despite underperformance by a lot of our people. So I'm not up here saying, oh my gosh, we got to, go blow up the house and the farm, and we got to do this and we got to do that. We have to be better. We have to make people better. We have to make people more accountable. We have to have some changes. We know we're going to have some new blood into our lineup, and the game's not getting any slower. And you look at the way the best teams are built. There's really two different models. You have the Boston, LA, big, brawny, heavy. Then you have the Chicagos and Detroits, the quick, fast, skill. I mean, those are sort of the two models, and I feel like we're a little bit caught in the middle of both. So we have to regain our identity, which we'll do, and come back stronger.
With Martin, how concerned are you that he breaks down sometimes probably because of the style of game that he plays, but how much of a concern is that going forward with him?
He's still a young player. I mean, injuries are part of the game. He has had his share. I think you look at a condensed schedule, you look at going to Russia, you look at playing the Olympics, you look at coming back, you look at all the games in a short period, and he goes down. It was, our team, you look at, the years we make the playoffs, who has the injuries and what time. Shane Doan's having the best start to his, really, in a dozen years. And he, gets bit by a bug, and it wasn't only that it affected him in the time that he missed. It was the games that he came back until the Olympic break where he really was exhausted all the time. So it wasn't just missing those games. It was probably the next dozen games where he actually played that he was really it was tough for him. But I thought he finished strong. I mean, there's some good stories here too. I mean, I thought Mikkel Bodker took a real positive step in his career in regards to becoming an important player when the game's on the line and taking responsibility for wins and losses. Antoine Vermette had a very strong year, very strong. But like a lot of our players, you look at the last 10 games and our offensive performance, other than Mikkel Bodker, Kyle Chuchura had a real strong finish. Oliver and Keith Yandel had another. I thought Keith's year was maybe the best two-way year of his career. Again, he was another guy. I think he had 2 assists in those last 10 games. It happened. We're here. We got to figure out why and find a way to be better when it counts.
Can you talk more about Mike Ribeiro and the fit? I know you said he had a good first half and struggled in the second half. Was that surprising to you because you get a guy like that for a playoff push and kind of faded down the stretch?
Yeah, it's, again, I don't want to stand up here and make this Mike Ribeiro. It's a point to figure out Mike, but if he's up here, he's saying the same thing. He's disappointed in himself in his performance. You'd think at a guy at his age, or Shane Doan's age, or Derek Morris's age, that you wouldn't, they'd be confident, they know their game. They all need, their confidence ebbs and flows. And I think Mike got down on himself in his play and got into a rut and couldn't get out of it. And obviously Tip jarred him by sitting him out in important games. Tried to get him back, tried to see if that was ignite the fire a little bit. And then now we're in a situation where we have to get some offense. He's here to help provide us some offense. And the irony of this all, like for years we talk about the power play. There's no power play. We got the last 10 games, I felt we were just waiting for a power play. It was the only time where we could seemed like we had a chance to make a play and maybe score. So, you know, it's, when you fix one thing, something else breaks down. So in Mike's case, we need him to be better. And that's going to be a goal this summer, to make sure this never happens again.
Finding guys to play with him, to suit him. I don't know if there's someone in the pipeline or if it's going out and finding someone in free agency or trade, knowing his style and what he likes of his wingers, Don.
I think at the end of the day, there's a certain compete level you have to play. And I think Mike got down in his game. And obviously, you know, the coaches got down on him as well. And it was a snowball, and he couldn't find his way out of it. And we need to get his confidence back to a level that he's a good player for us, because he wasn't.
Speaking of,
all the maddening games, you almost boil it down in the crucible of 2 games, third period of Minnesota here late, and then that Nashville game where there just wasn't a push. Those are the 2 most disappointing games.
I thought the Minnesota was the turning point of our season and their season. They were at a crucial period of their. They're on the road. They've got a tough schedule. They lost a bunch of games. They came in and willed themselves to win that game. And to me, that's where we went the other way. We were there, even though the game was close in the third period. You know, we hardly touched the puck. I just thought that we weren't able to. You know, we talked about our road trip and the length of travel, blah 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 blah. But it really comes back to a really analysis of all of us. My job. Scouting job, coaching job, players, training. We have to go back and say, okay, what happened? Why has it happened? And how do we fix it? And that's what we're all about. We have a good staff, great staff here. Really, we all work well together. And that's why what makes this so difficult, because the ownership came in, they expanded the budget, spent more than what was certainly allocated at the start of the year. And to not get the results, that's bad management, and that's on me. So we got to go back and not let that happen again.
What type of changes? I mean, like you said, you're still kind of delving through everything, but it seems, and you hinted at it at the trade deadline, if this doesn't work, we might have to, really take a look at our core and maybe going younger. Is that still the belief? Do you see the core changing, and is there a push to go younger, and how far younger, I guess?
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody talks younger. It's to me, like a Brandon Gormley is younger, but he's going to his 3rd year pro. A pleasant surprise was Connor Murphy, but he'll be a 2nd year pro. I know everybody looks at Max Domi, and maybe Henrik Samuelsson. Those guys haven't played a pro game. So I really want to downplay the idea that they're going to waltz into our team next year and lead us to the promised land. I think that's folly. Can they do it? Will they do it? Will they have an opportunity? Absolutely. But we just look at our group, and you can't finish the way we finish and expect next year it's going to be any different. So we have to make changes. And I think it's really more, if you look at some of the players we've had around here for a number of years, we've had some level of success, but we haven't the last 2 years. So now it's time. We're not going to wait 4 or 5 years either. We're just not going to do it. So we have to make some changes, open up opportunities for other people, figure out where our chemistry went wrong.
Don, you had Mealy up and down a couple of times, and Max Domi had a pretty nice season. Do you look at those guys possibly filling some spots?
Well, Andy Mealy's a totally different story. I mean, he's an unrestricted free agent. He had a great year in the American Hockey League. I think he's 2nd league in scoring. He had his opportunities here, but he'll have the choice whether he wants to come back and sign with us or not. Certainly, Max is a very strong candidate for a position with us. I mean, I'm excited about his game. He had another strong year, but I don't want to sit up and down and put it in ink that he's starting left winger either. Too. He may be just too young. All you have to do is look around those teams around the league that had high picks, and they throw them into their lineup at 19 and 18 and 20 years old, and where they're drafting in June. So we're going to be smart about it, Our model continues to be Detroit. That's the team we want to be. You don't have to sink to the very bottom to have a chance to win every year, but it takes good management, good drafting, good developing, and great coaching, which we have. The coaching. Let's leave the management out, because I didn't do a very good job this year.
Is maybe the urge to look internal, is that maybe also of just reactive of the free agent pool this summer and maybe grading that out initially? Is that maybe, well, maybe we got better options inside than going out and overpaying for a 37-year-old?
Yeah,
How would you
it's an
handicap that
interesting,
initially?
market right now because you really have to look at the free, obviously you take a look at Minnesota a couple of years ago and the preseason suitors. They're top elite players that got long-term deals, and it was good. It's been good deals from Minnesota. They're great players, and that team is a good team. But it's the trouble with the July 1st is it's the term. Yeah, we like some of the players, but if we're learning anything, when you start lobbing out those 4 and 5 year deals, 4 and 5 million plus, you better be sure you know what you're getting. So it's not a great pool, but we have lots of young talent here, and whether that's young talent for us, whether it's young talent in a deal, I think we're more inclined to look at shuffling, making more moves. My focus this year was to get to the playoffs. I felt new ownership in. Let's use whatever we can to get to the playoffs. And if it doesn't work, then we reset, and that's where we are today.
You were in play for a couple of significant pieces at the trade deadline. Did the rest of the season change your thinking on that? Would you still be interested in pursuing maybe a couple of those players if they're available?
It's going to depend on where our budget is, which is still to be determined. How active we can be in those higher end players. And again, it goes back to the same story. Would you love those? Sure. If you can get them on a shorter deal, yes. Yeah, the beauty of when we signed Ray Whitney a couple of years ago was it was a 2-year deal. And he was a great player for us, and he stayed hungry. It's when you get longer term deals, there's a tendency to get a little comfortable. So we have to, figure out that fine line of keeping people hungry, opening up opportunities. How are we going to win here? That's what we're asking ourselves. If you look at the 4 years without ownership, it was basically survival to me. Like we have to survive this year now and do everything we possibly can. We have a new ownership group that came in late, and so really the cast was set. The ability to make deals this year was minimal. Moving money around was almost non-existent. So we were, I don't say stuck, but we were pretty much settled in who we had. And so then you're praying, and the deal we made for Martin Erat at the trade deadline, thought would be a good thing for Marty Hansel and Radim Verbata. That connection, that check would work. Didn't really work. Marty Hansel was injured. I thought the last 4 or 5 games, Martin Erat is starting to show what we hope to expect next year. I think he's had 4 points the last 5 games. At least there's a sign of a heartbeat there and some hope. But it certainly didn't ignite the offense that we certainly thought when we made that deal. So, we have to go back and review how we do things and how we're analyzing. But I think we have to look at our group and say we need more energy, we need more hunger into our group. And maybe we got a little bit complacent with people being here a little too long.
When you look at the market in the off-season, is your early sense that it, because of what's available, the prices may go up, the term may lengthen? What's your early read on that?
I don't know. I mean, I would say yes, because the cap's going back up. The teams that are generally spenders in the summer couldn't spend per se this year because the cap came down. So there's more money in the marketplace. So there's a lot of disappointment. There's 13 other teams just like us, the Coyotes today, that are disappointed, upset, have to get better. 10 days from now, there'll be another 8 teams that are going to do the same thing. They're out in the first round. How do we get better? So the competition for players, there's going to be more money in the marketplace. So you have to draft and develop well. The good thing, I'm excited about our blue line. Looks terrific. The mix is there for a strong blue line. Mike Smith is an elite goalie in this league. So in that area, I think it's up front. We have to find a way. And it was proven in the last 3 weeks of the season. We're not good enough in that position.
What's your take on your class of unrestricted free agents, maybe particularly like you mentioned Verbata and Grice, then how he filled in here?
We're going to evaluate all of them, and I think that I've said this before. That every one of them would like to stay, but whether that's the right move for us remains to be seen. So we're going to meet with the coaches this week and have some pro scout meetings and decide who, if any, we want to keep.
with the free agent market, it seems like it gets more inflationary every July 1. How does that affect the trade market? I mean, is there more chatter on the trade market leading up to that, or because if you don't like the term, maybe guys can do it via the trade route?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question, because I do think there's more dialogue now. Like before, it just seemed like, whether it's because the contracts have become so big and heavy, a lot of teams would wait till July 1 to retool. I think now you look at who's out there, and it's not particularly deep. Most teams are signing the people they want to keep for long-term deals. So for us, I think that's a good thing. I think there'll be more teams looking to make trades. And part of the problem this year was the cap declining. There was just no fluidity, very little fluidity in the marketplace, and it made it very difficult to move pieces around and try and help your team. So that's the job now, and to look at this team and decide who we want to keep and what areas we have to improve in.
Last night, Tip said that last few years this team had overachieved, and this year the team had underachieved. Do you agree with that? Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, I do. I mean, if you look at our group, whether it was the survival mentality we had, and we have found a way to still be talking here in the desert, which is a good thing. This year, I think the expectations were higher. It is disappointing, and yet I'm encouraged that we were not far off. And yet I'm not kidding myself, thinking, okay, well, we can just sit here with what we have, and next year we'll be better. We're not looking at it, but I also know this game has not changed for me. It's coaching, it's goaltending, it's mix and chemistry. Our goaltending, average first half, real good. Mike, the second half. Coaching is second to none. Chemistry, we're going to have to look at. And whether that's just the age of our core group, where we have to find a way, it may not be throwing a 19 or 20-year-old in there, but it might be deals for a 24 or 25 or 23, just having a little more, some hungrier players.
Where's your interest at as far as maybe talking extension with Vermette this summer, and he's a player that you could see keeping in this core moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, Anton had a very good year with something we'll certainly have a conversation about and see if there's any reason to talk. If you look at who overachieved, who we're satisfied, and who under, certainly Anton's year, other than, you could argue the last 10 games, like everybody else, he dried up offensively, but all in all, he was as valuable as anybody in the sense of the areas of the game he touched. He was really good for a long time for us. So would we like to keep him? Yeah, we'd like to do something, but as I've learned, whether we're able to do something or not, that's another story.
Are you going to be sending any guys down to Portland?
Yeah, we're going to send Visitine, Gormley, Murphy, and Tyler Gaudette will go down, and he'll get a couple games this week.
You had gone to see some of those junior players. What's your sense of where they are? I know that it differs for each player, obviously, but what's your general sense of where those players are, like Gaudette or Samuelson?
Well, I think Max Domi will make a hard push for this team next year. I do. And yet I don't want to, I caution about, making it the Max Domi, summer Max Domi. I think that's a mistake, because he might not. It might be too much for him. And if it is, we'll send him back. I mean, this idea that we're going to change our policy and start forcing young guys into this, that's not going to change. But if we think one thing with Max, he's physically, ready. Well, Mikhail Bodker was physically ready in 19 too. And it took him a while to finally get his game in gear. I think Henrik Samuelson had a good year. We'll see. He's had a strong year. He's still playing in the playoffs. I mean, the one thing I like about both Domi and Samuelson, they've come from winning organizations. They win in junior. It's good to have that. If you look at what we had in Portland, certainly Lucas Lesio has had a real strong year. He's got speed and power. You got to harness it without the puck, but he's at times unstoppable at that level. Young Ryder, he's had a real good year down, really intelligent player. Plays a lot like Verbata, quite frankly. Intelligent, smart, good with the puck, good puck management. He's had a good year. I mean, these are some of the names that Tyler Gaudette that was here. He's a big, strong kid. Will he have a chance? I mean, we'll have to see in September. But those are some of the names that we could see surfacing next year.
Time for one. How did the dynamic of your job change with ownership now on the ground? It's a whole new world
Well, it's certainly a get to know you process. Obviously, I mean, there's you know, you know, I report to George Gosby. Certainly, Anthony LeBlanc is running the business side, and the ownership are on trips and around, which is not something we had over the last few years, which is a good thing. Very supportive of the hockey side. Just what can we do to help? How do we, you know, how can we make it better? And their focus is long term. It's like we want a winner here long term, and that's why we have to take a step back. And instead of having that survive for tomorrow mentality, you know, what is it going to take to win 3 and 5 years out, and have that long term vision? And that's what they've been instructing me to start thinking about and presenting a plan to them. So from where I stand, it's been excellent, the relationship and the support. You know, they're like the rest of us, though. They're very successful people in their own rights, and nobody likes to lose. We expected to be in the playoffs. We're not, and we're not happy.